thank you for joining today, everyone. And what we'll be covering in terms of the detail, but I'll introduce us. So on the call today, I have myself. I'm Bradley Dawson, so I'm the operations manager, and we've got Mike Warner, who is the delivery and product manager. So the purpose of today's session is to support you with the year-end process, particularly around ensuring gateway submissions are completed correctly and on time, and that you're clear about the cut-off dates that affect apprentices moving into endpoint assessment. We know that this period can sometimes create uncertainty around final evidence, gateway readiness, and booking of assessments. So today we want to make sure that the process is as clear and straightforward as possible. So we'll walk through the key dates, the dates you need to know and need to be aware of, the common issues that we see at gateway submission, and simple checks you can just put into place to make sure everything is ready first time. The aim is by the end of the session, you'll feel confident about what needs to happen before year end, what must be completed before gateway, what before gateway can be confirmed, and how to avoid delays to your apprentices' assessments. So thanks again for taking the time to join us, and we'll get started. So, first thing I want to cover with you is that you'll probably see that we're pleased to let you all know that EPA Pro has officially changed its branding over to the Proficient. You should have all seen this by now. While the name has changed, just to let you all know that your access requirements, data, and the functionality all remain exactly the same. So there's actually nothing that you need to action from that perspective. It's just a different visual. I'm going to talk you through quite a few stages here, and it will be quite a lot of information, but I think it is necessary to make sure that we do cover all aspects of this. So when we're registering learners, we'll start with learner registration because it's where a lot of avoidable issues begin. Accurate registration is essential for two key reasons. So it does ensure that smooth gateway process, but it also ensures that the ESFA funding claims align correctly. If information is missing or incorrect at this stage, it can cause gateway rejections or ESFA claim issues later on. So it's really important to get this right first time. When we move over to the Apprentice Details tab, within that tab, please ensure that the following information is completed. So we need the training provider details, the provider on-program assessor, the apprenticeship standard and the specialism where applicable, and the apprenticeship start date. The start date is the one that's particularly important because it must match the records held with the ESFA. So moving on to the user and apprenticeship details. So next we move to the user details tab. Here the learner's full legal name must be entered exactly as it appears on their ID. This includes making sure all surnames are recorded in the correct order. If the name on the learner's ID does not match the name recorded in EPA Pro Proficient, the gateway submission will unfortunately be rejected. So it's always worth double checking this before proceeding. Regarding the ULN, so the ULN is the unique learner number, and this must also match the records with the ESFA funding claims. If the ULN entered in Proficient doesn't match the ESFA records, it can cause problems with funding claims, so accuracy here is really important. On the Workplace Details tab, so the next tab towards the end of that one, which you need to complete in full, is a particularly important field as it has the mentor details. So these must be included by the time gateway is submitted, otherwise the submission will be rejected. This one is actually one of the most common rejection reasons simply because it's often just overlooked. If you already have the mentor information available during registration, we strongly recommend adding this straight away to avoid issues later on. Next section is linking the apprentice to an employer. So once the learner is registered, we also strongly recommend linking them to the correct employer within Proficient. Common cause of gateway rejection is when the apprentice isn't linked to the correct employer record. To prevent this, you can either edit the learner profile, go to the learner details page, locate the employer field, and select the correct employer using the drop-down menu. Missing or inaccurate employer details will result in gateway rejection, so it's best to complete this step as soon as the learner is registered. What I did want to include a session on was around reasonable adjustments. So at the registration stage, it's also recommended to apply any reasonable adjustments that may be required for EPA. Ideally, all requests should be submitted, reviewed, and decided before gateway submission. If adjustments are pending or applied for at gateway stage, it can cause delays or even rejection depending on the circumstances. So for reference, reasonable adjustment and special consideration requests have a 5-day SLA for initial review. And then if additional evidence is required, the process may take longer. So please factor in this for your review time and your gateway planning. So moving learners through the Proficient stages. So once the learner has been registered correctly, they will appear in Proficient under the Enrolled section. At this stage, the next step is to verify the learner details and confirm. So you'll confirm the correct apprenticeship standard and the correct specialism where applicable. This is an additional feature that's built into Proficient, so it'll look like you're duplicating this twice, but in theory, it is just a second check, giving you the opportunity to be able to confirm the correct standard and the correct specialism. Once confirmed, the learner will move to the enrolled from the enrolled to the confirmed section. It's also important to note that EPA assessors and bookings team really rely on the employer information. It helps us coordinate a lot of different aspects, things like observations, site visits, assessment planning, and if additional communication is needed with employers. So employer details should again align with any records or any on-program documentation. Moving to that gateway process then. So when the learner is ready, you'll select Process within Proficient. This opens up the full gateway requirements, including required documentation, your gateway declaration, and any assessment questions. There'll also be a notes section within there that allows you to give as much detail or as little detail as you want to provide. We encourage as much to give us any specifics around dates of required assessments, dates to avoid, specific term time check, or anything that you need to let us know to avoid any specific instructions. Please just add it in that section and the team will work through those. Moving on to the required gateway documentation then. So key documentation requirements, we're looking at identification. So learners must provide valid identification and accepted in the following forms. So you've got a passport, driving license photocard, workplace ID, or the TQUK ID declaration form. The key thing to remember here is that the name on the ID must match the name on the learner record and Proficient exactly. So you can always contact us if that's not the case, and we can perform any change of name requests, but we do need to make sure that we iron these out at the beginning process if possible. Any mismatch will result in that gateway rejection, and that will be one of the gateway rejection reasons. Sometimes we ask for certificates. So when uploading certificates, these must be fully awarded certificates only. Unfortunately, we cannot accept course breakdowns, provisional certificates, or editable certificate versions. Only fully awarded certificates are accepted at Gateway. The TQUK documentation then. So where TQUK documentation is provided within Proficient, it's really important that the documents are returned in the same format that they were issued. For example, if the document is provided as an editable PDF, please return it in the same format. If signatures cannot be added directly to the document, you can submit a separate signed document or digital signature page. One thing to look out for is that sometimes your own computer's presettings will change a PDF document when you download it to a Word document, and it will tell you when it's done that. We do sometimes see gateway rejections based on the fact of the document change, and that's because we need to assure the document's not been changed outside of a PDF format and contain any additional information that we need to be made aware of, hence the reasons for the rejections. Moving over to things like portfolio of evidences. So for the standards that require that portfolio of evidence, you must upload one single zip folder. Please do not upload multiple files or folders separately. If the zip file is too large, you can send it via WeTransfer, and the EPA support team can upload it to the SharePoint area or learner profile. The accepted file types included are PDFs, Microsoft Office documents, text files, MP4 videos, and images. Links to external documents or folders cannot be accepted. So it's also important to note that Gateway reviewers only check the file types, formats, and the naming conventions to make sure that they're open and functional. The training provider still remains responsible for ensuring that the content of the portfolio is accurate, complete, and the learner's correct work. One of the important things as well is kind of making sure that your files are named. So for example, if a standard requires 2 observations, the file should clearly reflect that it's either observation 1 or observation 2, or we will accept a single file titled observations 1, 2 if it is one consecutive recording. If the file naming isn't clear, submission could be rejected. So assessment questions then. There are also several assessment planning questions within the Gateway process. All fields must be completed before submission. Regarding the assessment preferences, we offer both remote and face-to-face assessments, although some standards require specific formats, so not all options will be available for every standard. Observations must always be conducted face-to-face, and full addresses with postcodes must be provided. For other components, you may have the option to choose remote or face-to-face. Please ensure only one option is selected. If both are selected, this could also lead to a gateway rejection. Okay, so exam preferences. So exam invigilation options are determined by the standard selected. So if the exam is online, you must provide a date that allows at least 3 working days from the gateway submission to allow time for review and booking. If the exam is paper-based and invigilated by the training provider, at least 5 working days notice is required. If the exam requires an in-person invigilation by TQUK, the booking will depend upon the assessor availability, so a date is not required at this stage. Moving on to the assessment planning meetings. So many standards offer 3 options, either no assessment planning meeting, a touch-based assessment planning meeting, or a full assessment planning meeting. If no option is selected, the bookings team will automatically schedule a full assessment planning meeting. Some standards require a full assessment planning meeting, and in those cases, the option will not appear in the gateway questions. Regarding dates to avoid then, so in the final section of the gateway questions, it will ask you for things like dates to avoid, as I was talking about earlier. So this is where you can highlight things like holidays, non-working days, learners' availability, and examples might include things like Easter holidays, or if a learner doesn't perhaps work on a Tuesday. And sometimes the detail can be really important with these things. So things like shift patterns are helpful for the booking team. So if you've got a preferred date, say for example, 1st of January, and the learner only works on a shift pattern of Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. while 10 p.m., these details are really important and help us schedule assessments more efficiently. Regarding submitting the gateway then, so once everything's completed, all documentation uploaded and all questions answered, and the declaration is signed, the gateway can then be submitted for review. If the submission is correct and approved, the learner will move to the booking stage. At this point, the bookings team will use all the information provided at Gateway to arrange the assessments. So the more accurate and detailed Gateway submission is, the faster and smoother the bookings process will be. That's everything from me. I know it's quite a lot of information, but it does detail some of the common trends and issues that we see for gateway rejection, and then just cover some more of the standard processes that we see. So I'm just going to hand you back over to Mike now for gateway dates and the toolkit.
Brilliant, thanks, Bradley. And that's obviously a lot of crucial information, so thanks for that. We're working hard to update all of our documents to replace EPA Pro with Apprenticeship Assessment Platform. We chose that because that avoids any other brand name changes in the future. So all of our support materials, anywhere there's a reference to EPA Pro, like Bradley mentioned earlier, they've changed to Proficient. We're going to update, and we're just going to refer to the system as the Apprenticeship Assessment Platform, or AAP. Just before we look at cut-off dates, we've sent this out by email, and we will keep sharing this as we progress through towards the July 31st cut-off. Just a reminder that some assessment plans for some standards have a requirement for a particular time frame to be adhered to. So if it's a project that the apprentice must have 7 weeks to complete post-gateway, we have to stick to those. But where we can, we try to reduce our internal EPA window as much as possible. And the good news is that in February, so last month, where we were able to reduce those windows, over half of what we delivered in February was at least a week under our own internal window. So we're in really good kind of momentum leading into year end. So Thomas, if you could move us on, we'll go through the year end cut-off dates. So starting with March, we've got a couple, and I appreciate they're small on the screen. The video of the webinar will be shared, and the document has been shared already, but we can reshare it. So we've got a couple of standards there that are cutting off on the 30th of March, which is tomorrow. So just worth being aware of. And that is for our learning development consultant business partner and our learning development practitioner. And that's where the apprentices have a requirement to have a certain amount of time to complete a project. Thank you, Thomas. As we move into April, we see again some of our standards that have got slightly longer lead-in times. But there's a couple on there, but although the assessment window is 20 weeks, we're able to deliver it in 16 weeks. I won't read through all of the standards there, but You'll start to note as we go through that some of the dates have a little asterisk next to them. The first one there for early years lead practitioner. We just pop that asterisk on there as just a reminder that, and it mostly affects our education standards, that there could be closures or provisions finishing a little bit sooner than July 31st. So if that is the case, please make sure you consider that in gateway dates, just so that we're able to honour that apprentice being able to achieve before the July 31st cut-off. Thank you, Thomas. So May, we've got a couple of standards there. One of our new ones, Town Planning Assistant, has a 10-week window that we have to adhere to. We have our customer service specialist. Thank you, Thomas. And then we start to get into now our shorter windows. So please just again pay attention to these as much as you can. The recommended gateway date there on the 5th of June for the learning skills teacher, assessor and mentor, all with that asterisk, that just be mindful that if it's a learning skills teacher and the school, the college or wherever the apprentice is teaching may well be wrapping up their curriculum teaching, maybe ahead of that July 31st. So just factor that in as much as possible. It's a standard that's a great example where we delivering that in about 6 weeks as our average time. Thank you, Thomas. So we continue through June. Many of our other standards there you can see on the board towards the bottom have that 12-week assessment plan. We actually internally have a target to deliver that within 4 or 5 weeks. So again, the latest date for specialist teaching assistant, one of the newer standards, is the 19th of June to ensure that it's in by 1st of July. But again, factoring in that the schools closing where the apprentice may be teaching. Thank you, Thomas. Couple more for June, and then we should move into our July dates. Fabulous. So we've got a lot of standards that have their cut off towards the beginning of July, and we've got a few that have a cut off kind of mid-July. So please pay attention to those. If you have questions about the cut off dates, you can contact your relevant colleague, in the business development team. And they'll be happy to pop in a call if you're worried or you have questions about any of these cut-off dates. With the hairdressing standards, which is on there for the 3rd of July, again, as Bradley mentioned, knowledge of where the apprentice will be taking that endpoint assessment, if it's in their own salon that they work in, or if it's in one of your training provider salons, just knowing where that postcode is crucial for us to make sure we can get the right assessor in the right place at the right time for you. Thank you, Thomas. Lovely. Few more to go. So again, we've got a few standards there that have an assessment window at the team leader, a standard 16 weeks. We're actually delivering that in about 4 weeks. And we progress through to July when it starts to get super busy, fantastic. And then we've got our 17th of July, which allows for that 2 weeks for the apprentice to be through Gateway by that date in order for them to be able to achieve and sit their endpoint assessment by the 31st of July. So just for clarity, kind of our promise to you is that by meeting that Gateway date, your apprentice will sit their components before the 31st of July. That doesn't factor in things like resits, or if we pop a date in and then that date is changed. So we really rely on you to give us as much information as Gateway in terms of dates to avoid, as Bradley mentioned correctly, shift patterns and those sorts of things. Thank you, Thomas. So on our website is our year-end toolkit. It's a range of documents to help support timely completion. This video will be packaged and popped on there as well, so you can rewatch that anytime. It will also include our cut-off dates. So there's a nice shiny PDF with all of our standards listed and the cut-off dates, so that you've got those. If we were to update at any point, we would share that via email and then pop it back on the back in the toolkit section of the website. Just give you a minute if you want to scan that with your mobile device. That'll take you straight to the toolkit area. If you need to contact myself or Bradley, our email address is the same as everyone else's at TQK. So firstname.lastname@tqk.org. If you need anything, have any questions, please reach out to us. You've also got access to EPA support at TQK and relationship managers at TQK. So if you're not sure where to go for a question, EPA support. And if you've got a question that's more about kind of your contract side and support from our business business development, you've got the relationship managers there at tquk.org. We hope you have a better day than we've got in Milton Keynes, which is windy and drizzly. Hopefully you've got a bit of sun where you are. I'll be looking forward to working with you all the way through to a successful year end. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.